What's up, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Scouting the Fins right here on the 3 Yards Per Carry podcast, also part of the 5 Reasons Sports Network. I'm your co-host, Hussam Patel, and joining me are both Erics, finally, for the start of the NFL season. Gentlemen.
I thought Eric was going to go first. He usually does.
I thought Eric was going to go first too.
See, we get two Erics on here, and everything just falls apart. Glad to be on with both you guys again, as always. Know we got to talk a little bit about what happened last week, but I think that I'm a little more optimistic than most, so I'm kind of looking forward to moving forward and getting to the part where we're talking about the Patriots.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking forward to being talked off the ledge a little bit this evening. Any steps in those directions, I'm very willing to take. Turn the page on the Colts and let's see if there's a better effort here against New England Patriots.
We have to talk about this game just a little bit, guys. We have to talk just for a little bit. Like, they lost to the Colts. Obviously not what everyone had expected. The offense struggled, specifically to Tagovailoa. Some routes were a little bit questionable as well. We talked about in the Vetted Stage show as part of the 3 Yards Per Carry Discord. You guys can go ahead, subscribe to that $4.99 a month for all access. I believe it's $5 or $6. Alf will have to definitely correct me on that. I'm in there. Coach is in there. Eric is also in there as well. We go ahead and break down a little bit more film review. Tua was bad. But what was much more disappointing was the defense. I mean, the defense blitzed almost 57-58%, which was the highest in the NFL in week 1. Finished 30th in pressure rate. Coach, Eric, you and I talked about this in our review show where they needed to get after Daniel Jones, but Daniel Jones flipped the script and just completely shredded them in the short zone, especially with the litany of pass catchers and weapons he had.
Yeah, I mean, I think, credit to Indianapolis and Shane Steichen. I think they had a really good game plan for getting the ball out quickly in a lot of those instances. I think you can definitely see early on Anthony Weaver's kind of apprehension about the cornerback group, in terms of wanting to play those guys a little bit further back, maybe not get beat over the top. But it kind of led to a death by 1,000 cuts kind of approach by the Indianapolis Colts here. And, when the defensive line really did get their opportunity to genuinely, rush and not have the ball come out in 2 seconds, there just wasn't the push that was anticipated with this group and kind of the arsenal that the Dolphins have at their disposal in terms of pass rush, at least on paper. So that was probably one of the more disappointing things, although I do think that a lot of it had to do with a good game plan by Indy.
Coach, do you think Lou Anarumo found the blueprint against Miami's passing offense, or was this just a very wonky week 1?
I think the biggest thing was that it was a wonky week 1. I was less concerned about the offensive game plan than I was about the defensive game plan. Eric, you said death by 1,000 cuts, and to me, I felt like it was kind of the opposite. That instead of sitting back and trying to let that front four get after the quarterback, that Weaver was trying to compensate too much, and Anarumo or Steichen was just ahead of Weaver. Like, the opening script that Steichen had was way better than what Weaver had, because Daniel Jones, it felt like every time the Dolphins blitzed, Daniel Jones was getting the ball out to the hot receiver, and they were picking up chunk yards out of it. The game was a failure in all aspects. I mean, the offense was not good, right? And it goes squarely back to Tua. He wasn't the only thing that was wrong, but when your quarterback plays that poorly, it's going to be tough to win many games. But then when you compound that by a defense that couldn't get off the field, and even when they did get off the field, you're right back on there a play later because you run into the punter, right? Or you have your two returners, your two deep guys almost competing to catch the ball instead of having one of them blocking. Just felt like a lot of that stuff was happening. But, trying to talk people off the ledge, like what I would say about that game is that most of the stuff that you saw happen that snowballed into, the 30-point spread before the Dolphins scored, most of it's very fixable, right? It's Jonas Vayanaya missing a block. It's Devon Achane a little too wide on his own run. It's Tua, who has been, historically very accurate, not sailing a pass on the first third down of the game, right? Defensively, I feel like they found a little more success later as they kind of backed off and let the front seven do their thing. So I think there are things to take away from it, but overall, like my feeling is that you get a few crazy week one games every single week, right? Or every single year. And it's not great. Nobody should feel great right now, but I'm still kind of in a wait and see mode because I feel like what we see in week 2 is going to say a lot more about the team overall. If they come out and do this again, right, then maybe some flags need to really, really go to half mast, right? But if they can bounce back this week, then I think that a lot of people are going to step back from that ledge pretty quickly.
Well, the game was just bad. Just bad, bad, bad. And this actually came to my mind just now. If any of you guys listen to reggaeton, specifically Bad Bunny, the song Nueva Yol, just towards the end of the song, he goes bad, 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 bad. This is like every single film clip I watched on the Dolphins offense and defense. Bad, 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 bad. Like it was bad. But that's all gone now. We're on to week 2, on to the New England Patriots. Now this is going to be quite a story for the narratives on here. Tua is undefeated up against the New England Patriots, and Mike Vrabel is undefeated when he plays Tua Tagovailoa. Gentlemen, when we watch the Patriots, that offense and defensive clips and some of the data points we have, what's your first general takeaway about this team led by Mike Vrabel?
My first general takeaway with the Patriots right now is that it's still a work in progress with them. I think maybe some people kind of expected it to be a quick fix with Mike Vrabel coming in. And while I do think that he's going to come in and he's going to establish, some of that culture that he was known for establishing in Tennessee and, what he brought from, his days in New England, I think he's going to bring that in. But in terms of, the structure isn't fully set in yet with the Vrabel Patriots at this point. And I think that the team you see in week 2 this week is going to be very different from the team that you see, down the line in week 18 versus the Patriots up in Foxborough. And that's where you need to kind of take advantage, if you're the Miami Dolphins. Drake May is still kind of falling into the same young quarterback traps that he did last year a little bit. Although I think he'll continue to get more comfortable as the season progresses. It's a very – the Patriots are not – I don't think there's that leap that a lot of people were anticipating, at least not yet to this point. And I think that there are some cracks that the Dolphins can rightfully take advantage of, and I think that the data kind of speaks to that. But it's really going to be about, I think, this week, because I think when you look at the two teams on paper, even last week, I don't think 33-8 was indicative of the talent level of both teams. So I think it's going to come down to really the Dolphins' level of execution more than anything. Because if you execute at the level that you did last week, you're going to be 0-2.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think the Patriots roster still has a lot of holes in it. Vrabel did not walk into a pool of talent, but there are good pieces in there, right? As I'm watching the game, you see the chemistry that Drake May has with Hunter Henry at tight end. You have some really good draft picks and Travion Henderson, who played well, and I know that it seems like Patriots fans want to see him get a larger share. Combined with Ramondre Stevenson there, Will Campbell had a solid first week. Looks like another good pick there. Defensively, Milton Williams, big time, free agent pickup, and he had a good week. Seemed like kind of the way that we talk about the Dolphins, that a lot of the mistakes or the failures that the Patriots had are things that are fixable, right? Even though there's not a ton of talent there, right? The Patriots in their heyday were known for not making the big mistakes. And I think that that's the culture that Vrabel is trying to instill. But I think that on both sides of the ball, I think that, May to me still seems a little bit hesitant in throwing the ball, that he kind of has to see the receiver versus, throw into space the way that Tua does, or throw with anticipation. But I think that's something that as he gets more comfortable in Josh McDaniels' scheme, right, I think that we're going to see an improvement there. And the same thing defensively. Like, you see some of these blitzes getting home and creating big plays for the defense, but you also see some of them that are not getting home, and because they're taking those risks are resulting in big plays. But those are the type of things that I think will improve for the Patriots as they move forward throughout the season. So, it is a good opportunity to get the Patriots in week 2, where they're still working through some new schemes and getting used to the coaching staff there.
All right, let's go down to the game plan. Let's talk about the Miami Dolphins offense versus the Patriots defense. There's not a lot of whole good we can talk about this Dolphins offense, especially coming off that week 1 loss. So this is going to be more so geared towards that Patriots defense. They have 2 main pass rush threats. Milton Williams, big signing out of free agency, top 5 pass rush grade and win rate per PFF. Harold Landry had 2.5 sacks, primarily that came off of stunts and twists. There's a little bit of offensive line concern there, specifically with Austin Jackson and James Daniel being out, which is going to be the right side of the offensive line, Tua's blind side. That's specifically where Harold Landry lines up and got both of his sacks on those stunts and twists. Milton Williams, sometimes he's going to play the nose, sometimes he's going to play the 1 tech, or sometimes with 3 tech as well. The coverage profile, and there you go, you see the sacks right there, right on the screen. The coverage profile for the Patriots secondary, they were 29th in EPA when they played zone coverage. Now, the Patriots are a very cover 1 man coverage heavy team, so expect them to play a little bit of man, but we'll talk about what we think what's going to happen when the Dolphins face the Patriots defense. They were the second best defense in cover 1 last week. The Colts were the top defense, and the numbers were inflated because of the Tua pick against cover 1. The Patriots had a 77% defensive success rate. However, they allowed 6 yards per attempt and 6 yards per completion, which was 13th in the NFL. They have a little bit of weakness in the secondary. None of the defensive backs were top 50 in grades. Marcus Jones, their primary slot guy, allowed 34 yards in the slot. We will see if Christian Gonzalez actually plays this game. He did not practice Thursday. He did not practice Wednesday. We have to see what the Friday report comes out. In terms of motion, guys, listen, this Dolphins offense, we know is primarily dedicated based on motion. New England was the 4th best defense versus motion in week 1. Coach, you and I talked about this in Vetted. We need efficiency in the motions, not just running for the heck of it. Yeah, you can do motions all they want, but are they creating the leverage like we saw the Colts do with Tyler Warren, Josh Downs, and some of the other playmakers? The Dolphins need to find leverage with Devon Achane, with Tyreek Hill. I don't know if they can do it with, Tanner Connor or Julian Hill this week.
Yeah, I think that we talked about this for a couple of years now, that these motions, I think that when they run the motions are always used to gather information. But I feel like the motions that the Dolphins try to use are being used to gather information for the coaches more than the players on the field. And when you have a player like Tua out there that, is supposedly very cerebral, supposedly able to control the entire playbook at the line of scrimmage, I feel like you need to reduce those motions and get him out there with one motion, right? Trust your scheme a little more than what we have. Get him out there with one motion, let the motion come across to be a coverage indicator, and then let Tua work from there, right? Whether it is to call multiple plays into the huddle where he's got a run pass option that he can check to, or just to allow him to have more freedom at the line of scrimmage. But if you're going to give him that freedom to manipulate the defense, then you need to give him the time to do it. So I think that there
You need to
is
give
always
him
going to be.
time in the huddle. You need to give him more than 10 to 12 seconds after the huddle.
Yeah, that's you need to get out of the huddle earlier. You need to give him more time at the line of scrimmage. You need to get him up there. You need to have that motion done with 8-10 seconds left, so that we can make a quick change, right? So that we're not stuck with whatever pass routes are called, so that we can have three motions so that the guys upstairs can see what's going on.
The guys upstairs, are you listening? Are you listening to what Coach is saying? We've been saying this for 3 gosh darn years.
Yeah, I just overall I think that they need to cut down the pre-snap motions and allow the players to play. Allow the guys that you're supposed to be trusting with this scheme to be able to execute on the field, and not hold their hands so much that you're basically handcuffing them by not being able to get through everything until you got 5 seconds left on the clock.
Apologies for the rant and cutting you off, Coach. I'm just very passionate about motions.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that there's a little bit of an angle to this too, where when the motion is used as much as the Dolphins use it, I mean, listen, we've been saying, everyone knows what motion is meant to do. Opposing defensive coordinators understand what motion is supposed to do. And at a certain point, and this is where the Dolphins, and we see Tua kind of get in trouble with some of this stuff occasionally, is with those pre-snap reads, if good defensive coordinators are going to manipulate the manipulation, where, they're showing a specific reaction to the motion in order to invoke a certain read that might not actually be there post snap. And, I think that it's just the natural kind of ebb and flow where, if you overuse something to the point where it becomes just kind of what you do, you lose a little bit of the novelty of it. You lose a little bit of what it provides you. I'd really like to see them kind of get back to more of a meat and potatoes game plan today or on Sunday. And I think that that's going to have to get back to the basics of the run game. In what they did, they were really, like top of the league in EPA per rush week 1 in a 33-8 loss. And I think that you look at the Patriots in terms of their pass rush, and you're going to have to try to mute that a little bit. I know Mike McDaniel spoke to wanting to get Ollie Gordon a little bit more involved in week 2. I think he's going to have to get him a lot more involved this week.
I am so glad you brought up the running game, Eric, and I'm so glad that you're talking about EPA now. We have a little nerd fanboy club going on this podcast. I was producing the 3 yards per carry preview show as well. None of that mentioned EPA success rate. So, hey, guys, I think we're doing something right here to complement the 3 yards per carry A team right there. But look, it was only 7 rushes, and the game just got away from them. But they were successful. They converted 2 third and short. That was probably the biggest success story out of that game for the Dolphins offense. And I saw some of those motions in the run game. It was more so meat and potatoes. It wasn't a lot of fancy Ingold coming inside, then looping around on an orbit, or Tyreek doing these fancy jet motions. No, it was basic, and it worked primarily on the left side of the ball with Patrick Paul and Jonas Savaiinaea. Coach, I want to shout out your boy, Patrick Paul. He was the most elite offensive tackle in week one in terms of advanced metrics. Why? You may ask. 0% pressures, less than 0.5% blown blocks. Hats off to you, Patrick Paul. Make sure you do the same thing again against this New England Patriots pass rush. Hopefully, the Dolphins' running game can get going. A little bit more man concepts, mix in a little bit of zone. But, Coach, I want to ask you this specifically for the passing game. We saw defenses sit on Miami's inbreakers in week one and last season. What are the answers this week against this Patriots passing defense? More trips, outs, seams, a little bit more Devon Achane in the passing game. What's the solve here?
I mean, I feel like they did try to use Devon Achane in the passing. I think early in the third quarter they went to a few swing passes to him or in the flats. If the Patriots continue to play as much man coverage as they did in week one, then I think the solution is to create some isolations, right? The Patriots have their own questions in the secondary. You have two very well compensated wide receivers that you should be able to isolate in space and be able to create. And that kind of goes back to the point of giving Tua time at the line, right? You almost want to get out there and just play some backyard ball where, you know, maybe you put trips to one side with Tyreek lined up to the other, right? And, you have a couple of, signals for Tua and Tyreek to just, is it a slant? Is it a go, right? That we can just win one-on-one. I think there will be opportunities to run the ball against this defense, but it will – the passing game, I think, has to be quick because I think the Patriots do a really good job of being able to isolate the man side of the slide protections. Against the Raiders, they did a good job of showing pressure and getting the Raiders to slide one way and then bringing a twist or a stunt from the opposite side. And I imagine that against the Dolphins, they are going to, influence that slide to the left side. And you kind of have to do it based off of pre-snap looks, but that's going to put pressure on, whoever is at right guard, whether that's, Keon Smith, Dan Brunskill, or, somebody else, and likely Larry Borum on that side. It's going to put a lot of pressure on them. So I think we're going to have to continue to see the ball get out quickly. But again, isolation routes, I think using some natural picks against man coverage is going to be a way to create those quick completions. But I don't want to see Tua sitting back there and having to go second, third read against the blitz packages the Patriots have.
I think my worst fear is variable switching from man heavy to zone heavy and running a lot of cover 2, cover 4 stuff, Tampa stuff. And we saw Tua struggle again like that the last 2 seasons when playing up against variable. And if that happens, and if that's not corrected, it is going to be a very, very long week 2. And we're going to start having we already are, but these hard conversations are going to get a lot worse. All right. Before we head to the Dolphins defense versus the Patriots offense, we are going to head to break. All right, guys, I'm feeling a little bit hungry as of late, but let me tell you something. You guys got to check out Factor Meals, man. Between busy schedules and summer plans, sometimes all I've got is a couple minutes. Factor helps me eat smarter with tasty, chef-prepped meals that are dietitian approved and delivered right to my door. And now, with more than 65 weekly meals made for how I live and what I like to eat, I've got even more ways to fit in a real meal wherever the day takes me. Choose from a wider selection of weekly meal options including premium seafood choices like salmon and shrimp at no extra cost. Enjoy even more GLP-1 friendly meals and new Mediterranean diet options packed with protein and good for you fats. For the first time, try Asian inspired meals with bold flavors influenced by China, Thailand, and more. From more choices to better nutrition, that's why 97% of customers say that Factor helped them live a healthier life. Feel the difference no matter your routine. I heard that, Alf basically ordered an entire week of honey mustard chicken. I think he's going to turn into a chicken by the end of the week. And let's hope it actually does some good to him as well. So he's using it. You should too. Eat smart at factormeals.com/3yards50 off and use code 3yards50 off to get 50% off your first box plus free breakfast for 1 year. Who the hell doesn't love free breakfast, guys? That's code 3yards50 off at factormeals.com for 50% off your first box plus free breakfast for 1 year. Get delicious, ready-to-eat meals delivered with Factor. Offer only valid for new Factor customers with code and qualifying auto-renewing subscription purchase. All right, and we are off to Underdog Fantasy. Guys, it's week 2. Football is back, and it's week 2 now. Underdog is the best place to make picks and win money all season long. Playing on Underdog is easy. Just pick whether your favorite players will go higher or lower on stats like touchdowns, receiving yards, interceptions, and more. Get your picks right, and you can win up to 5,000 times your cash. That's right, 5,000 times your cash. You can play with as little as $1. This week on Underdog, there's a lot of selections happening. We're going to go ahead and take a look at Tua on over or under on his passing yards. You can go ahead and select that as well. Higher or lower on his passing yards. Download the app today and sign up with promo code 3yards to score $50 in bonus funds when you play your first $5. That's promo code 3yards, 3YARDS. Millions of fans have already won billions making picks on Underdog. Will you be next? Underdog, more picks,
Be
win
18
money.
plus, 19 plus in Alabama and Nebraska, 19 plus in Colorado for some games, 21 plus in Arizona, Massachusetts, and Virginia, and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. See assets.underdogfantasy.com/web/play and get terms dfs.html for details. Offer not valid in Maryland, Michigan, Ohio, and Pennsylvania. Concerned with your play? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.ncpgambling.org. In New York, call 24/7 HOPE line at 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369.
All right, and we are back. Wow, my mouth hurts from all that talking. All right,
Getting back in season.
getting back in season, and hopefully the Dolphins defense can get back into season form up against this Patriots offense and Drake May. Drake May did not have a good showing up against the Las Vegas Raiders. At least his metrics didn't show it. 21st in EPA with a negative 0.00, 26th in success rate with 42%, and 28th in third down conversion. Tua was a little bit lower. He was like 31st, 32nd. The big thing, I think, was Drake May up against cover 3, 22nd in EPA, 23rd in success rate, 21st in first down conversions. Up against the blitz, Drake May sometimes struggles with that, as we saw last season. He was 19th in EPA, 20th in success, 15th in first down conversions. He's going to have to get the ball out quick if the Dolphins can generate pressure, if they blitz efficiently. It's not about the amount of blitzes. It's about the efficiency of the blitz and if they can get after him. They're going to have to rely a lot on Ramondre Stevenson or Travion Henderson. I think Travion Henderson is going to play a little bit more snaps, specifically in the pass game, if the Dolphins play more zone. It feels like their current secondary with Jack Jones, Rasul Douglas, Storm Duck being injured, Jason Marshall Jr. in the slot. They all have their strengths and weaknesses. Rasul Douglas is better in short zone. Jack Jones is better in man. We still don't know what the likings of Jason Marshall Jr. is in the secondary, but there's a lot of question, and that opens up a lot of these short area completions that we saw Daniel Jones just absolutely destroy the Dolphins defense with. I think Drake May is going to do the same. However, there's a stat for you guys. Drake May was pressured around it took him around 3.83 seconds to throw the ball. And the clips that coach is showing right now, you can see the offensive line of New England gets a little bit of push, but not enough. And what happens is that Drake May has to move off his spot and run around, which is why he's extending the time. If you get Drake May to do that, and if Chop Robinson, Jalen Phillips, Bradley Chubb, Zach Sealer, and Kenneth Grant, if they're able to close on and get their hands on Drake May, they're going to be successful in this game. They did not do that up against Daniel Jones and the Indianapolis Colts.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing with the New England Patriots versus, like, say, the Indianapolis Colts last week is the Patriots' offensive line is not the Colts' offensive line. And I think that's a pretty big difference between these two teams. You look at Drake May, there's still a lot of early pressure coming at him. Obviously, they did the work to address the offensive line a little bit, taking Campbell in the first round. And he's going to end up being a really good offensive lineman in the NFL. But at the same time, there's still more work that needs to be done there in New England along the line. So I think it's got to be get pressure on Drake May. And I'm hoping that there's a little bit more, because maybe it's not as talented of a group of pass catchers in New England. Obviously, they do have Stephon Diggs, although the jury's kind of still out as to whether he's the same guy that he has been the last 2 or 3 seasons. I'd like to see this group in particular. I think that this group with Jason Marshall and Rasul Douglas and Jack Jones is probably the most physical corner combination we've seen, to date for this Dolphins team. So I'd like to see them maybe get a little bit more physical with these Patriots receivers and kind of disrupt some of that timing and allow the defensive line to actually work and get some of that pressure early on. Hunter Henry scares me. That is my biggest concern. I look at what Tyler Warren did week 1, and don't get me wrong, I think Tyler Warren is really special. But I look at the chemistry that Drake May and Hunter Henry have, and Hunter Henry has quietly been a bit of a Dolphins killer himself over the last couple of years. So that's really my biggest concern in terms of the defensive game plan is how do the Dolphins contend with him over the middle?
Yeah, and so for me, right, some of the notes that I had down as I'm watching that Patriots and Raiders game is that I don't think that the Patriots offensive line as a whole is very good right now. And we talk about the risk of Miami having Keon Smith and Larry Borom on the right side. Well, the Patriots have 2 rookies on the left side. They have Will Campbell at left tackle, and I'm drawing a blank on the name, but it was a center from Georgia who was the left guard. Jared Wilson. I think it was a Wilson for some reason. I was thinking Logan Wilson. Jared Wilson is at left guard, right? So you have some of the same opportunities there on the other side of the ball. One of the other things that I observed is that I feel like Drake May is much better scrambling to his right than he is to his left. So I feel, for me, like my recipe against them would be to – the same way that I talked about Vrabel influencing that slide and then, sending a stunt to the man protection side, I would find a way to influence the slide to the right side. And I would, make those 2 rookies earn their draft status, right? I would, try to beat them one-on-one with Sealer and Chop, right? I would bring some twists there. Maybe it's finally time to bring Willie Gay in and run some stunts and some twists there with him as well. But if we can, bring the pressure from the right side with the slide and force May to his left, I think that's one way to create success. As Eric said, I feel like his chemistry with Henry is very good. There was one particular kind of, I don't want to say a back shoulder throw, it was more of a back hip throw where Henry's running down the seam and the defender has inside leverage and May puts it on his left side hip and Henry knows exactly what's coming and is able to twist around and catch it as he's going down. I think that was a third down conversion, if I remember correctly. Later on in that
clip, that was unbelievable.
And that's a chemistry deal, right? You don't do that without a ton of practice and a ton of comfort. And later in the game, it felt like May was trying to build that chemistry with Diggs. Felt like there was more targets later in the game that went to Diggs, and it seemed like a solid strategy for him. Another thing that we didn't see as much with Daniel Jones, I think that we'll see this week, is that the Patriots are going to show Drake May as a threat in the running game. Right? He's not going to be a Lamar Jackson, but there's going to be some zone reads where he has that option to keep the ball and to run as well. And I'm not, it's not Lamar Jackson. I'm not worried about him running for, a 70, 80-yard touchdown. But when we get into some key third or fourth down situations, it's just one of those things that the defense is going to have to keep their eyes open for.
Yeah, you mentioned their offensive line not being good as the Colts. Now, what happens if it's the same situation come week one where the Dolphins defensive line that was hyped up to be world beaters still can't do anything against this Patriots offensive line, and Drake May is just killing them by death by 1,000 paper cuts? Like, is it hashtag over for this Dolphins team?
Yeah. If this front seven cannot get pressure on Drake May with this offensive line, then we have severely overestimated this front seven. And we said from the beginning that the only way that this defense is going to succeed is if that front seven can cover up the secondary. So if they can't do that in week 2, then that is a major red flag.
All right, we're going to finish it off with some X factors of this game, and then we'll get to our predictions. Gentlemen, which matchup is more important for the Dolphins? Their wide receivers up against this Patriots secondary and Tua hitting it in the right place, or the Dolphins offensive line, that right side up against that New England stunt-heavy pass rush?
For me, it's definitely the offensive line. And I think I know where coach is going to go with this one too. But we've seen the Dolphins kind of win and kind of operate a functional offense around, the receivers not getting open or to maybe not making connections with the receivers. We've seen them kind of maneuver around that. I don't think there is maneuvering around Harold Landry and Milton Williams living in the backfield all game long. And so to me, that's really the crucial kind of matchup here, is if you cannot mute that pass rush for New England and you can't find ways to give to a time, then you're going to have a really tough time scoring the football, and it's going to be really hard to see them. It's going to be hard to envision them winning in that scenario. Whereas I can see a world where maybe Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle aren't the most productive, but the Dolphins still find a way to have a functional offense and win the game.
See, I'm kind of going to go opposite in that sense. And the reason that I'm going to say it is because, always talk about continuity on the offensive line. They didn't have that in week 1 with James Daniels going out after the third or fourth play, Keon Smith coming in, who hadn't played guard very much in the preseason since the early parts of it. And then you get Larry Borum likely coming in for Austin Jackson. So I'm worried about the chemistry there. and I think that you're going to have to do a little extra to protect them, whether it is, the play actions, whether it's sliding more protection that way. So, I think that's a given that you're going to have to protect them and that you're going to have to get the ball out quick. So with that being the core philosophy for me, then the X factor for me is the receiver's ability to win those matchups. Like if you know that you're not going to have much time, then you need guys that are going to get open quick. So I think that the ball is going to have to get out quick no matter what. And for the Dolphins to be successful offensively, I think you're going to have to create some imbalance on the defense by being able to get some of those quick completions, get the linebackers to sit back a little bit, and then to be able to run the ball that's going to, aid the offensive line, right? Once you can keep yourself ahead of the chains, get into those second and medium and third and short situations, then you put yourself in a situation where the defense can't really guess what you're doing, and that's how you protect that offensive line. But I think that the receivers being able to win quickly is going to be a major factor for the Dolphins this week.
And Tua not playing bad in the first couple of opening drives. I think the first opening and the second opening drive, if the Dolphins can get there with the run game, if they can run more on the left side and be successful, if they can get at least a touchdown on the first drive and at least a field goal on the second drive, especially at home, I think something can be done where it should not look like a slot fest up against the Indianapolis Colts. Coach and Eric, thank you guys for joining us. And as always, stick with us here on Scouting the Fins, part of the 3 Yards Per Carry podcast, also part of the 5 Reasons Sports Network. As always, y'all, go Fins.